first question we have is from Grace. Grace says, everyone's talking about how sorry they feel for Harry Kane this week. Of course, Real Madrid beat Bayern Munich and Kane will now be winning a trophy this season. Now, Grace goes on to say, but should a footballer's success instead be determined by the impact they've had on the team they're in, rather than the number of trophies they may or may not win? Feel like the parameters for success in football need to be readjusted, especially for someone like Kane. What do you think, Luke?
Well, hopefully for his sake, he won't be an outlier for his whole career.
Yeah.
But at the moment, he's an outlier.
He
right?
hasn't. Yeah, he's currently a loser because he hasn't won a trophy.
He's not won a single trophy in his career. Now, clearly, he's one of the best players in the world and has been for some time. Arguably the best striker England have ever had. The England international goal scoring record would suggest that.
Mm-hmm.
So he's clearly an outlier in this, in some ways, quite arbitrary way that we, award. Reward achievements in football. So I totally understand the point of the question. I totally get it. I do think the conversation around it can be more thoughtful sometimes, but then ultimately, really, football is a sport and sports have winners and losers, and that's just how it goes. And I do think, although it's not the whole entire story, and particularly for someone like Kane at this point, I do think it's kind of indicative of a quality player when they are able to win several trophies. If you look at, say, Ryan Giggs, for example, I think he won 13 Premier League trophies at United. He was clearly in a great team, a legacy-defining team, but he also played in that team regularly all the time and was decent. And so, therefore, that is a good measure of him being a good player. I don't think it should just be about trophies. So I kind of agree with kind of what's implied by Grace's question. But I do think it's a good way of working it out. So it almost reminds me a bit of what Winston Churchill said about democracy. It's a terrible system, but it's the best one we've got.
Yep.
It's not perfect because there are loads of great players out there who never really get an opportunity for different circumstances or different reasons. I personally believe when it comes specifically to Harry Kane, I think he's probably just been a bit unlucky. I think he's come through at Spurs. Found some loyalty to Spurs. Spurs are just timing-wise a big club who are in a trophy drought, and that happens to lots of clubs. So now he's moved to Bayern Munich, I suspect things will start to sort themselves out. They haven't in the first season, fine. It's not the be-all and end-all. It probably will at some point. I think we should certainly think about the impact that players have on teams and their ability and their quality as well as trophies. But I do think trophies really for players are the be-all and end-all, really.
Yeah, I mean, I think the last sentence in Grace's message is worth paying attention to. She says, "Feel like the parameters for success in football need to be readjusted, especially for someone like Kane." And I think that's right in this very, very specific example, because if you look at the individual achievements that Kane has, they're pretty exceptional, really. He's England's all-time top scorer, World Cup top scorer, Bundesliga top scorer once, won the Golden Boot 3 times in England. He's got the individual accolades, and trophies are
Millwall Young Player of the Year as well.
Indeed.
That one.
Trophies are a collective achievement in a team sport. So I think a lack of them is not an individual failure. I think that's a fair thing to level towards Kane. And I think also, as you mentioned, the time of it is difficult because I think Spurs have been tantalisingly close to being a team that looked like they could win things for basically his whole time there. If he'd come through at, say, like QPR, just to pluck a team out of the air, not to sort of put the boot into them, he'd obviously would have left sooner. And he would have won things. But at Spurs,
he was in that kind of little, almost like a hinterland,
a little sort of, little Goldilocks zone where it's like, you know what, this feels like it could work and we could do it, and I just need to give it another crack. And
so presumably you're talking about, just to give people a full example list, is like two League Cup final runners up, Champions League runner up, England Euros runner up.
Yeah, I remember.
And 2016, Spurs could have won the league. Came close to winning the league.
Pochettino era.
Yeah.
Incredible that never ended with a trophy.
It's a really good point though, Jim, because you're absolutely right to say that. If he'd been at a team who's never realistically going to win a major trophy, he leaves years and years before he left Spurs.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think, as you say, he's going to win trophies at Bayern at some point, inevitably. He absolutely will.
As soon as Xabi Alonso leaves Bayern.
Maybe. Yeah.
He's going to have to stay
presumably, longer. Surely they'll have some sort of hangover next season and Bayern will sweep it all up. But we simply don't know, do we? But yeah, you're right. It is a really important measure. He'll be devastated if he doesn't win one, but I just think he will. I think if he doesn't, I don't think people will look back on his career and have that as the defining point of it. I think it will be a much larger version of those players who played for smaller countries that never made it to a World Cup. You know, I don't think people are going to go, oh, Harry Kane, he ultimately was a bottle job, or ultimately he wasn't quite good enough, because he's been the outstanding player in every team he's been in, really. So it's not like, he isn't one of those players where you look at him and think, oh, has he got it when it counts? Does he do it in the big games? Now, he's not scored in any of those finals, to be fair. He did put his penalty away in the shootout in the Euros, but I don't think I don't think anyone really says he's not a big game player. You get people that, you know, it's a rumbled opinion, isn't it? But I don't think it's a particularly strong one.
Yeah, I mean, he scored in semi-finals, you know, but
exactly.
My take is a little bit different, actually. I don't think people rate a footballer's success on trophy wins at all, quite frankly.
At all?
No, I really don't. And I think that because
May I remind you of John Terry scoring a goal, running into the crowd, beating his chest and shouting, "Trophies!
Yeah.
Trophies!
I thought that was Frank Lampard.
Trophies!"
They both did it, I think.
They both do it.
Yeah.
But is that not the
They're
measure
both-
of sporting integrity?
At that time, they were both balls in a sack, though, weren't they? So it could have been both of them at the same
I
time.
quite like Frank, but there we are.
Yeah.
But not for that.
Yeah.
No, I really don't, actually. I think that I think because Kane has been so good and had such an incredible career and won so many individual awards, I think people are, and as well as it's Spurs, you know, there is that thing about Spurs. Yeah, you never win a trophy, and it's been this long and that long. And so I think he is quite a unique example in which we focus on the lack of trophies. But the reason why I don't think it's a big deal is because when you say Ryan Giggs has won a load of trophies, that's not, or Paul Scholes say, when I think of, say, Paul Scholes, I don't think back of him lifting trophies. I think back, it's the goals that I remember, or the passes, or the performances, and of course some of them have come in trophies. And his little Willie popping out his shorts, Jim, as you reminded me.
Is that what you were doing then? I couldn't connect what he was actually doing.
I want to make it clear I was wagging my finger.
Yeah, but you've coloured it ginger for me as well. But
That's it.
But so that's what people remember. It's
You want to see my trophy? You want to see my little ginger? Oi, Harry Kane ain't got one of these.
It's the highlight reels, and it's the way that these players made us feel.
That's the most important
Yeah,
thing,
but
isn't it?
And that's it.
That's
And-
part
and-
of it, though.
and-
That's not a romantic part of
No,
it.
I think that's it, because when Alan Shearer's on Match of the Day, you don't look at him and go, that Blackburn Rovers. You look at, he comes up the amount of goals he scored.
But this is the thing. I'm pleased you mentioned Shearer, because I was going to mention him, and I totally get the comparison. Similar position, good goal scoring record, all the rest of it. If Alan Shearer had not won that one league title with Blackburn, people would absolutely be saying that as the key point of trivia about his career for the rest of his life.
Okay, so
it matters.
So it does. Okay. So let me row back slightly. I think it matters a little bit, but I don't think it matters that much. And then
Shearer's also got the added luxury of being by miles the Premier League top scorer.
Yeah.
And for many, many years, it was a joke how far ahead he was of everyone else.
But Kane going to Germany was good for Shearer's record.
Massively.
Yeah. And so I think because of Harry Kane, this unique example, because of his goal scoring exploits, I think that people will focus on that. And I think that he is quite a unique character in that whole, he actually never won a major trophy, but he's gone in search of it. And if he doesn't get it at Bayern, which will be quite something, then I think people, it's that weird quirk. And I think in a generation or two, when people know the name Harry Kane, when he appears on things like Gary Lineker as a presenter or certain pundits, and people will go, "Oh my goodness, there's Harry Kane, he scored all these," and it will be, he never won a major trophy. Blimey, okay. But I don't think it's that will influence us on how his success will be determined. But it is a teensy bit important, but I think it's more important for the individual players. Gabriel Batistuta and Francesco Totti I'd like to bring to the table, please, if I may, and I don't think you'll have any complaints about that. Two absolute legends. Batistuta, if you took away that Serie A win for Roma, you wouldn't begrudge him. You think of Batigol in a Fiorentina shirt. He has a bronze statue of himself.
Yeah, but that's not the point, is it?
No, but no. But the point is, I think about 80% of their career, or the success will be defined on how they played the game and what they did. I think what we're saying about the trophy wins is about 20%. Now, Batistuta has that statue outside of Fiorentina's ground. He's one of the best strikers that we ever saw. He was, up until Messi came along, Argentina's top scorer, not too dissimilar to Kane. And that Fiorentina side were knocking on the door of the Serie A title for a little bit. They were in the Champions League again, so comparisons again. He then went to Roma, And oddly, I mean, Roma wasn't a given. Obviously they won the league there, and he was a part of that helping. But he got that that Serie A title, and I think people thought, oh yeah, he deserves that. Yeah, absolutely. But had he not have got that, I don't think we would look or talk about Batistuta.
No, but I don't think we would
differently.
either. But I think you're looking at it the wrong way round. I think everyone respects Batistuta, to use your example, for the great player he was, the romantic figure he kind of portrayed, how he looked, his power, his technical ability, his goal scoring, his all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
That's fine, and no one's arguing that point. I think the crux of the question from Grace, though, is you have to flip it around. You have to say, if Gabriel Batistuta did win 10 Serie A trophies and 4 Champions Leagues, does that affect his reputation? And of course it does.
I don't know, but I'm not...
If he had won a Serie A title every single year he was in Italy, people would arguably say he's the greatest Serie A player of all time.
Oh, so he's not as good as Filippo Inzaghi,
So
then?
it massively affects their reputation, which is the point.
No, but I don't think it does, because I think that my example there backs it up. Totti and Batistuta are looked much more favourably than Filippo Inzaghi. But Inzaghi's got a Champions League winners' medal. He's won Serie A as well. In terms of trophies and success, he's.
But you're comparing
might-
different players for a different reason.
Yeah, because
there.
they're sort of talismanic figures, which is a slightly different thing.
Which is why that success can be determined in different ways. I'm saying to you that the trophy
Well,
wins.
that's true.
The trophy wins somewhat there. You can't take away. You'd be foolish to take away. What certain players have done, and it's right. And when certain pundits, it flashes up what they have achieved in their career. Absolutely, and that is there. But I'm saying that there are examples where had a player never won anything, had Totti never won that Serie A title, or Batistuta, okay, the Coppa Italia, but that's not quite seen as the same as the FA Cup here. I don't think it changes the reputation. Now, you could argue then that their players are foreign players, and we don't.
But no one's saying that David May is a better player than Harry Kane because he won the Premier League. No one's saying that.
But Grace is saying, do the parameters for success in football need to be readjusted for someone like Kane? And I'm saying that if he does not win a major trophy in his career, I don't think that would change the way any of us would look at him.
Fine, it would though, because it may not change how you look at him. But if Kane goes through his career not winning anything, it dogs him for the rest of his life.
It's a footnote.
So it does affect his reputation in loads of different ways.
It becomes
perhaps not for you because you're more thoughtful than that.
Thanks.
But many people will use that as a stick to beat him with. And he knows that because that's part of the reason he's probably gone to Bayern.
It becomes a pub quiz question that everybody knows the answer to.
Yeah,
doesn't
but
it?
it does.
A shit pub quiz.
Yeah, but just because it does, I'm still not. I think it's fellow professionals who do that. We see, when Graham Souness and Paul Pogba and it was all that. Right, bring your medals to the table. How many have you got, and all that kind of stuff. I think it's a pissing up the wall contest.
Yeah,
often
Mark
with
Lawrenson
that.
did that as well, didn't he?
Yeah,
Lawro did that once.
he did, and
Got caught on a secret camera.
Yeah. So I honestly think it's actually how did that player make us feel and what the highlight reel will be, and I think that is the
Marcus is a romantic. He's an old romantic. Bless him. Look at him.
Marcus, I put this to you.
Lucky woman, Mrs. Speller.
very lucky.
Yeah.
What
Tom Kearney's never won a
What
major trophy. He's won the championship.
He has
in
in
the
your
playoffs,
house.
so.
what happens to Kane's reputation if the only trophy he ever wins is the Euros with England?
Well, so this is you're absolutely right.
I think that's
There's one in the chamber for that.
Yeah, exactly. He's already he's just typing to get his notes up.
Well, no, but I mean, so I would compare him.
I think it becomes a fig leaf.
I
The
compare
same way
him.
Shearer's Premier League title becomes a fig
I
leaf.
compare him to another Fulham player, George Cohen, who, absolute legend out there. He's a whole one club man. Now, I understand that people may sort of think, well, outside of Fulham, but he won the World Cup with England. So he's immortalised there. It's the only major trophy he won, but not too shabby. So slightly similar to Totti, who obviously won the World Cup, but did win that Serie
That's
A
very, very
title.
different though, because Kane is the talisman, really, right? It's this generation's main figure.
Yeah, so I think if he wins the Euros with England, then in this country,
He'll be knighted on the pitch.
Well, he's already got. I mean, talk about individuals. He's already got an MBE for crying out loud.
We should summarise.
Yes.
I think it's a great question, as Grace and everyone else listening will hopefully hear, because the impassioned debate it's inspired.
But, I mean, that's
to
the beauty.
me, it does matter. To you, perhaps not as much.
About 20%.
Yeah, I think it's important because I think ultimately, what in summary, from my point of view, I'll just say this: when you're a kid who wants to be a footballer, what are you imagining? Yeah, you might be imagining scoring a goal in a cup final, but that's presumably because you want to win the cup final.
My take on this is that yes, these things are really, really important, but obviously things exist on a case-by-case basis, right? And Kane is so exceptional and has proven himself so exceptional in every metric that I think the standard is slightly different for him.
Well, I agree. I think the individual case-by-case stuff is there, which is why Alan Shearer will always be seen in a much higher sort of
Category
than Andy Cole.
Yeah, fine.
It's important to remember that Harry Kane is a one-season wonder. Who has stretched that season out over his whole career.
Right, Luke, you got the next question.
Yeah, this is from Bob. Hi, Bob. He says, now that Ipswich...
Bob Duggan.
Bob Duggan, sorry.
Sounds like a wrestler.
Bob knows who he is. He says, now that Ipswich are back in the top level... after 22 years, what other long-lost club would you return to the Barclays with your magical Pete Donaldson engineered wand? I don't want to talk about Pete's wand.
No.
Probably had Jim's finger. I assume you have at least one Pete Donaldson engineered wand in storage.
Yeah.
That's probably for Patreon subscribers. But so yeah, which club, now Ipswich are back in the top flight for the first time in 22 years, which other club? I don't really like how Bob describes clubs who are just in the lower leagues as long lost.
Well, we've been out of the Premier League a long time.
Yeah. Who would you have back up there?
Because we made a big deal when Forest came back. It was good to see them and Leeds
I think a lot of people found that tedious.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah.
Well, that's fine.
My friend Adam's a big Huddersfield Town fan. He was like, I had to turn off the Ramble for a few weeks when you were doing that. Oh, they used to have Brian Clough in the fucking 70s. I don't give a fuck.
Who does he support?
Huddersfield Town.
Never heard of them. Never heard of them. I don't think they've ever been in the Premier League. Hey, Luke's mate. I thought about
disrespectful to your mate.
Who's that?
The David Wagner group.
No, well, he's Norwich now, isn't he?
I know.
So it changes.
I know it does, but I'm just saying that's how you first fell in love with David Wagner when he was managing Huddersfield Town.
Fine, you can have that.
Okay, thank you. That's all I wanted.
Yeah. Well, after the recent FA Cup semi-final, I think seeing Coventry City back in the Premier League would be quite something.
Think about Richard Keys, though.
Yeah. Well, but that's the blemish. So it's an honourable mention, but it's not my ultimate answer.
Yeah.
Okay.
You can't take that man seriously.
Yeah, so the likes of Coventry...
Don't let him get in your head.
No, exactly. So the likes of Coventry, sorry Coventry, but I can't give you that because it's Richard Keys. But an honourable mention, though, because of the 90s and all that kind of stuff and the size of the club, etc. And Sunderland would be another one as well. But I'd love to see at some point Sheffield Wednesday back in the Premier League.
I knew you were going to say that.
Yeah, I would like both Sheffield clubs to be in the Premier League at the same time.
Yeah,
There's something about a
Sheffield
derby.
United have had their chance.
They have.
And they have absolutely stunk the place out.
Yes.
You've invited Sheffield United to your house party. They've blocked the toilet, drunk all the booze, and left you with a
broken glass.
A 4-pack of Tesco value lager in the fridge.
Knock the fence down in the back garden.
They put a firework on the fence and set fire to it by accident.
And I've enjoyed it.
Fine.
We've all had a really good night.
No, I was going to say, haven't you been around their house and done all that?
Yeah. Sheffield Wednesday's a good shout, though. For people of our age, they were really excited back in the 90s.
Well, it's a huge... I mean, the stadium is
big,
40,000. You know, it's there. It's a big... I love the kit as well.
Yeah.
It's just... I suppose it just... What kind of emotions are come to the surface when you think about certain clubs and so on. And it's a team I used to love watching as well with great names. So I would say Wednesday because... It's Sheffield Wednesday. It's season by season. You go, they're in the Championship. Oh, blimey, no, they're in League One now. You know, they've been a long while out of it.
They're a storied club. It would be
club.
good to see them back. I would personally quite like to see at the start of next season Derby County just promoted with no warning. Go on, see if you can do better than 11. See if you can get more than 11 points.
Who would take out the
Spurs.
Prem? Obviously. Classic.
Yeah.
My answer was actually, and hear me out here before you. There's a few reasons for this. Bolton Wanderers.
I thought about Bolton.
Yeah. And I'm going to give you why. At the moment, as I've said a few times, they play great stuff under Ian Evatt, and he's done an amazing job, and they're on the up. And they'll I think they'll do pretty well going forward under him as well. But actually, although when we think about Bolton Wanderers, who were in the Premier League for quite a long time, you think of kind of the Sam Allardyce years.
Mm-hmm.
It was before Sam Allardyce became the kind of the Pokemon evolution of the final Sam Allardyce, where he just lent into his worst kind of instincts and became this kind of like comedy character. Like he now does a podcast called No Tippy Tappy Football, right? But he wasn't always like that.
No, he wasn't.
And he was very, very innovative when it comes to kind of things like stats and data. But he also went really far out of his way to bring like genuinely interesting players to Bolton.
And he could manage to convince someone like Ivan Campo
it's not
to
just
come
him.
to Bolton.
Campo, Anelka,
Djorkaeff, what a player.
Okocha,
Mario Jardel.
You know, Gary Medine.
Yeah.
that wasn't under him. But you know, there's Mario Jardel's a great shout.
Although he was
fat.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I can say that as a fat man myself. Fernando Hierro.
Oh, yeah.
Fernando Hierro as well. So the late great Gary Speed played for Bolton.
I mean, it goes on and on.
There's a lot. Jay Spearing.
Go right.
You know, there's a lot of
Jason McAteer, I think.
And your friend of mine, Jim, Rob Holding.
Indeed.
As well,
yes.
of course. So, but joking aside, They were a really interesting team, and they used to do quite interesting things to get an advantage. They were almost a Stoke before Stoke as well, with Arsenal, Bolton. Arsenal felt like quite tough against Bolton from memory as well.
But I think, as you say, at the beginning of Allardyce's reign, they weren't always like that. Well, it was just something they could do. It was a mode of play that they had where they could mix it up and make it difficult for opponents.
Yeah.
They didn't play like that against teams that they sort of felt equal to.
Yeah, but this is the question, isn't it? That it's basically who makes you feel nostalgic. Get them back in, kind of thing.
It seems mental to say that back in the day, 2005, Bolton finished sixth in the Premier League.
It does. It absolutely does.
Wimbledon. Obviously, they're MK Dons now.
You're saying I'd like to see MK Dons in the Premier League. Yeah. Andy would maintain that he doesn't care and it doesn't bother him.
Yeah, I'd like to see the top two in the Premier League be Milton Keynes Dons,
all Wimbledon
and
derby.
Kingstonian.
No, Kingstonian. Yeah, yeah. That's one in the art of brass.
Finally, some justice.
I mean, the only other one I would add though is because we know Coventry have had a torrid time on and off the pitch.
Stop talking about Coventry.
And Derby County, Oldham Athletic. That is a club that has suffered.
It has, but just because they were kind of under members of the Premier League, right?
Yeah, but it's an answer to the question.
Anything's an answer to the question in this case.
No, it's not. Because I would love to see a Bristol side in the Premier League. But I don't think they've never been in the Premier League. Of course. So you couldn't answer that because it was a return to the Barclays, as Bobby D was saying.
Would we like it to be sponsored by Barclays again? At some point, Barclays is going to pick up on this and probably try and do it.
Yeah, they should.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway,
maybe
Jim.
Marissa's been in touch on X, probably the best platform to get in touch with.
Great stuff on X.
Other than the Patreon.
Sure, obviously, of course.
Yeah.
If you could have one rule change during stoppage time, what would it be and why? Now, personally, I don't think we need to be changing rules, so I'm just going to go straight into a stupid, chaotic answer. Keepers have to take all set pieces in the opposition half.
Nice.
Corners included. Imagine the chaos.
Yeah, it would be good.
You wouldn't want a corner. Like when defenders run and stop a corner and put out for a throw. You see attacking players do that.
I'd like to see.
Will you get booked for that?
Yeah.
I'd like to see every 3 minutes, because stoppage time's longer now, right?
Yeah.
I'd like to see every 3 minutes a player from each team gets removed. Gives a much more chance of getting a result, in theory.
It does.
Yeah.
I've listened to the Players' Union.
It's been that's been mooted a lot over the years, hasn't it, as a sort of potential replacement for penalties. And I think in practice it would be absolute chaos, but in terms of entertainment, that would make it great.
Well, you'd be left with like two players on the pitch just exhausted.
Yeah,
absolutely. Mine is sort of a semi-serious answer: is unless obvious injury, no substitutions in stoppage time. I just get fed up with managers stopping the game. I
think that's a good shout.
It's just really good. Come on. It's time wasting, or it's
stupid time wasting because the referee adds 30 seconds for that anyway.
But it's disrupting the flow of play.
But do you know why also why they do it is because they do it sometimes to reward players for having a good week in training, so they get an appearance bonus, stuff like that.
Right.
Yeah, I mean there is that, and I understand that
young players get a debut.
Wayne Rooney coming on in the Europa League final with 2 minutes to go or something like that. Yeah. They give him a little run out, but actually it does disrupt the flow of the game, and it's a certain tactic that many deploy. So yeah,
can I also
unless there's as I say, obviously if you're going to go down, you're going to feign injury, you've got to get off the stretcher.
Yeah, I think maybe if you're going to go down, it's tricky though, isn't it? Because player safety is really important. But I would just extrapolate very, very quickly, if I may, just to say something I do feel quite strongly about in terms of rule changes generally, because it would solve a lot of quite pointless and tedious debate around scoring records. Is I would genuinely change the rule so that the player who is fouled for the penalty has to take the penalty. Because you a lot of time now you see there's a few reasons for it. One is the statistics thing. One is because you see a lot of penalties now where it's not really a scoring chance, or it's like players moving away from goal, or they've bought it and there's no real prospect of scoring. Yeah. The only thing I guess would be handball. I guess with handball you could maybe, if it's a handball, you can designate your penalty taker. But other than that, if you are fouled for it, you have to take it.
How about if it's handball, you have to punch it?
If it's handball, you have to punch it in the net.
Slide along the floor.
Yeah. No, I think you can throw it up and then you've got to punch it in.
Yeah, I know. Well.
Absolute mockery.
Yeah. Well, because Marcus, you're on this kind of stuff, you're much more reticent to change to me. But how do you feel about that idea specifically?
What, about a player being fouled?
Having to take it?
I just don't see what the sort of the merits or the thinking behind it is. Like, why would you want to bring that in? Like, what does it stop? What does it... because with the subs in the stoppage time, it's the disruption of the play, and it's a kind of tactic which I think, no, come on, we can do without that. Let the game flow. We just want the game flow, if you see what I mean. Hence, I said a sort of semi-serious point because I'm not hugely wedded to it. But there's a reason why when I'm watching the game, something's going on. I'm like, I wish that stop that because I want the thing. Why then, if a player is fouled, like what are you getting out of that? Is what I'd ask.
I just think it changes the dynamic slightly because if you're someone who, if it's like a defensively minded player on like a breakaway going into the penalty area, taking the opportunity to go down rather than actually have a go, they know that the best penalty taker in the team is going to be able to take the penalty and will certainly score. If they have to take it themselves, I think it just changes the dynamic a little bit. It also means that you don't have to have this tedious debate about how many of these players' goal-scoring record this season was with penalties.
There'll always be tedious debate, though. It will pop up one way or another.
Okay, I'd like to replace that tedious debate with inevitably another tedious debate.
Sure, but also the idea of players winning penalties by simulating or diving or whatever you want to call it, knowing that their best goal scorer is going to score it. You can't really bake into the rules the idea that some of them are cheating. They're meant to be.
No, I know that. But
right?
for example, in NBA, if the player fouled takes a free throw, it's like just part of the fabric of the game.
Yeah.
In golf, they use golf clubs, mate.
They do actually.
What's your point?
I wouldn't have them using golf clubs.
No.
They'd have to use Jim's finger.
What a finger it is.
Yeah.
Shall we end the mailbag with this question from Gary, who emailed us in? He said, after Jose Mourinho said he would walk to Manchester to take the Manchester United job, what should managers do to prove their loyalty to their new club? It's a great question.
It is. It really is.
Having to walk there would be a bad idea because you'd get only local managers, wouldn't you?
Not after Hard as Geezer done his thing.
Yeah,
he ran
true.
the length of Africa. If he can do it. I think Mourinho can walk to Manchester.
Imagine the people he'd pick up on the way.
Doesn't Mourinho
so many people there by the time he arrived.
Doesn't Mourinho live in London anyway?
He's certainly got a property in London.
So he could just walk to Manchester from London. That wouldn't take him that long.
Okay, well, other than the walking to the ground, does anybody want to chip in?
Yeah, I would like to see a scenario where the manager would have to break into a rival's stadium or training ground and plant a flag. It's not quite as simple as that because you would get a budget for it and access to the club's security team to help you do it.
Yeah,
you
know it's coming though. You know it's coming.
I'd like it.
Don't know where, don't know when.
Yeah.
I just think when Mikel Arteta gets the Arsenal job, Spurs are going right. Come on,
step up security.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But if he manages it, they're just going to go, fucking hell, it's annoying. Yeah. And then we'll get on with our lives.
Yeah, I don't know why I'm talking this down. This would be brilliant.
Do you know what I would do? I would, in a lot of jobs, you have to pass a test.
Yes, this is what I'm thinking.
So I don't know, presumably if you are working in some kind of financial services, you have to pass an exam or whatever to show that you're qualified, and then maybe you have to do a compliance check or whatever. If you're a manager and you come in and you manage a club, you have to pass an aptitude test, basically like the citizenship test, and know you know enough about the club.
Yeah.
And so it's 20 questions. They can be multiple choice.
But in front of the fans.
No, well, let me get to the bit.
Okay.
They have to answer it, and they have to get a certain amount of score to be eligible to actually take the job. And if they fail that exam, I think they should get a bullet in the head.
Mine slightly different.
Bit like Squid Game.
Yeah.
I just think there's too many managers.
Yeah.
Anyone can call themselves a manager, can't they? Half of them haven't got a job.
I was going to suggest a knife,
Okay.
but I'm a pro. No, I think that I like the idea of a test. I think some sort of trivia test about the club in front of a fans group.
Yeah,
they could just fire any questions.
It'd be good.
I think that would be genuinely quite good. Or the other one I thought, I quite like when Thomas Tuchel went to Chelsea, head to toe in club attire. Tracksuit or whatever, you've really got to try and
but
give the club shop do a solid for
one
them.
thing that always makes me laugh is that the new managers coming in, invariably in the press conference they'll go, well, yeah, it's an absolutely massive club and I'm delighted to be here. And I just wonder how far down the pyramid you can go and say that. I'm pretty sure Chris, Cockney Chris, he said to us once that the manager who'd just been announced as the new manager of Chesham United said it's a massive club. I'm absolutely delighted to be here. It's I'm not being rude about a non-league club, Chesham United. I'm sure they're great and everything, but
maybe for that level they're massive.
By no measure are they a massive club.
Well, by a measure of the league they're in, they might be.
Marcus, come on.
Fine. The best one of that was Walter Zenga when he was wanting to manage Wolves.
Yeah.
And he said, in Italy, Wolves are like one of the biggest clubs in England. Everyone talks about Wolves. No, they don't. They've
It's
not
not
been
true.
in top flight very long.
It can't be true.
We love Steve Bull. Like, come on, what have you got?
He's trying his best. That's his version of the test, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
He's naming one of their all-time best players.
No, he never. I added that.
Oh, you added that bit. Okay, I thought he was doing it.
I loved it when Paul Ince played there. He wasn't saying any of this.
Oh, Dennis Irwin.
Sylvan Ebans played. Oh, Dennis Irwin was there.
Can I just say, Paul Ince didn't really play there.
He was in the kit, but he was pictured
Shouted
in the kit.
a lot.
Yeah,
Yeah.
a few times. The only other one I was saying that the new manager and the coaching staff have to recreate a famous goal scored by that club, sort of Baddiel and Skinner-esque on the pitch.
Phoenix and the Flames type.
Yeah,
style.
exactly. Oh,
Roy doing that.
yeah.
Can I do a tap in?
Can I try and do the Clint Dempsey against Juventus? They're there all afternoon trying to get the deal. It'd be absolutely wonderful.
Oh, Roy Hodge has been announced as the new manager of Milan. He's got to run the legs of the pitch like George Weah.
Oh no, the fans choose.
He'll be there in a minute.
Mourinho gets the Man United job. That Rooney volley against Newcastle.
Yeah.
Recreate that.
Got to do it.
Yep.
Yeah. Good news is we've brought the keeper back. He's in goal.
Was that Shea?
It might have been Shay Given, yeah.
Could have been. Or Steve Harper.
Or his
You never know.
stunt double Steve Harper, yeah.
Exactly.
Cheers for watching another fantastic clip from the Football Ramble podcast. Make sure you click like on this video and subscribe to the channel, which means you will not miss a single upload.